Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different. My name is Chelsea Haldane. I'm actually going to do a little bit of a story about myself. And basically, we're going to talk about a little bit about finding your passion and how it's never too late to find that. So a little bit of background for you. I was a very musical kid. I played the piano, I played the flute, I played the violin throughout school. I did every choir that was available to me, starting as early as elementary school. I did musical theater. I did AP Music Theory in high school to prepare for a music degree in college. I did choir and opera in college. I very quickly realized when I got to college that I was not made to be a music teacher, which left performance. You can't really get a steady income in performance. So I decided that I'd rather pursue a career where there would be a steady income. And so I switched from my passion, music, over to speech and language pathology. I graduated from the University of Central Arkansas with my Bachelor's of Science in Speech and Language Pathology and a minor in music. I never worked as a speech path. I decided whenever I graduated from college that it was not meant for me. My idea had been that I was going to work with my mother. She was also a speech and language pathologist, but by the time I graduated, I realized I had no interest in the profession. Instead, I bounced around in the customer service jobs for several years before I finally landed at a local internal medicine veterinary clinic. I worked my way up at the clinic, eventually becoming practice manager. Something was missing. I was going to work every day, but I hated what I was doing. I loved the patients. I love the owners of the patients, and something that is really interesting about working in a specialty field is that you get the owners that really care about their fur babies. So that was always a really good thing about where I was working at the time, is the owners that cared. I love the veterinarian that I worked for. She is an amazing human being, but I was missing that spark that I always had with music. I experienced a, quote, dark night of the soul, as the speaker Rachel Joy Baribeau puts it, and I was admitted to the hospital. I was diagnosed with bipolar, and my treatment was switched from depression medication to bipolar medication. I spent the next 2 years focusing on my health and well-being. I spent that time rebuilding my foundations and gaining my internal equilibrium and strength that I had had long before I had started displaying symptoms of bipolar. Shout out to my husband, Caleb, who was incredibly supportive during this time and who worked very hard to provide for us while I healed. When the time was right, I entered the workforce again. I worked for a little over a year for a local insurance company. I'm sure by now you're asking yourself, where does coding fit into all of this? My husband is a developer, and I always enjoy discussing his problem solving for his projects. I took a C# course at Francis Tuttle to get a bit more familiar with coding, so I could better discuss his job with him. I enjoyed it so much. Around the time I got sick, I was doing coursework through the University of Central Oklahoma in C#. I had to discontinue school when I got sick, but that one arena left so much to explore for me, and it offered something that I enjoyed. Last year, the conversation Kayla was having with a couple of friends that were looking for a career change was to look into coding boot camps. Those were good ways to get involved in coding while making a shift into the development sphere. His excitement during these conversations lit my interest in developing again. My job at the time was going through some changes, and while I knew I was going to have a job, it wasn't going to look the same as it was at that current time. I decided that that was a good time for me to shift away from working in the sphere that I was working in and to go all in on coding. I gave my job a 2 weeks notice, and I quit that Friday. That following Monday, I started a full-time boot camp. That is how quick that decision was made. I don't regret it, you guys. Boot camp was very hard, very hard. I held on by sheer determination, help from my professors, help from other students, and help from my husband. My training was as a full stack developer in React, Express, Node.js, and Postgres. Around the time that I graduated, the tech layoffs were happening. Junior level positions were being snatched up by more senior level developers as they were jockeying for the available jobs. In the meantime, I did work for SoonerCon on both their website as well as a behind the scenes application, which gave me a chance to expand my knowledge into other technologies such as Angular and MongoDB. I was eventually hired on as an associate technology operations developer for Arvest Banks when the market started correcting very recently. This was a front-end developer position using my React skills. Yay! Why is all of this important? Because I found my passion again, y'all. Music was my passion for the better part of 20 years. I felt desolate without something to replace it. And after another 2 decades, I finally found a new passion in coding, in the problem solving behind the code, and seeing something created out of nothing. In short, it's never too late to find something you're passionate about. Music was that for me. Coding is that for me. Keep your head up, keep trying new things, and keep learning.